So for the con side, I'm going to start off. For the con side, we're going to be arguing that banning offensive words does not make the world a better place. So for my first argument, I'm going to be arguing that children learn right and wrong from what they're surrounded by, their setting and their surroundings, environment. So Lernerby and Rashia, 2012, they found that adolescents, they learn the response of guilt and empathy through instances of moral transgression. So basically that looks like when one party gives another party, they have a negative response, whether that's crying or being upset or mad. A child will take away those responses that they see and hear, and in turn they will slowly start to learn guilt and empathy based on, if they're hurt or upset, or if they hurt someone else, just depending on the situation. Now, Mr. Lernerby, he also participated in another set of research in 2005 with himself, Burrell, Matwin, Sokol, and Hammond, and they kind of went along the same lines, but they took the perspective of children do not learn to mistreat others based off of the thought of possible punishment, but based off of their consideration for others' happiness and genuine well-being. So they were really hitting on the fact that children at a young age, they're not worried about getting in trouble. They don't really understand the concept of punishment at adolescent age, but they learn to not hurt others because they don't want to be hurt, and they're concerned for other people, their well-being and happiness. So for my second argument, I'm going to be arguing that using offensive words, it can be excusably learned. So Wienerholz, Bilsema, and Cornelius Del Vlam, they found in 2013 that swearing and cursing can be explained as a biological response. So basically, it can be a response to pain, frustration, and multiple other high-level emotional responses. They went on to compare it, swearing and cursing to, the growl or a cry of an animal when in distress or pain or whatever the instance might present. They justified that in certain instances, cursing is just a mere response to a particular situation. Now Thompson, in 2012, he went on to say that children go through a fundamental part of their life where they are influenced. Children are influenced largely by their surroundings and their settings, as I said before. So Thompson found that whoever the children are around most at a young age, whether it's their parents, their guardians, maybe siblings, it's not necessarily who's raising them, who's providing for them, but it's really who they are constantly surrounded by and being talked to. And so kind of bringing those together, if you have a young child who is constantly surrounded by their unfortunately racist parents, they might hear their mom and dad say the N-word or any other offensive word, a racial slur, just in response to, burning their hand on a pan or, spilling a glass of milk, whatever it might be. That young child is going to be hearing those racial slurs, and going off of both of these, both of this research has found, the child and these children, they'll learn to use those words as the same response that their parents do. So in the future, when the child stubs their toe, they're going to start saying the N-word because they don't realize that it's not morally correct. They learned at such a young age that the N-word was their response for pain, and now it's a biological response. And for my third and final argument, I am arguing that laws banning offensive words, they don't remove the power, the meaning of the words themselves. So Wojcik, 2013, he studied that during early childhood development, children use labels or referents to learn new words. So whatever they're surrounded by as a saying, they're using what they see, what they hear, to label new meanings to new things and feelings. Now, using what Thompson said about children being influenced by their surroundings, who's with them the most as a child, you get to the idea that these children, whether or not, as I use an example of having a racist parent, once a children understands a word, whether it may be offensive, learning it socially or, through their parents or family, a child will not be able to unlearn that meaning. So,
my first argument is that offensive is subjective. We don't all find the same things to be offensive. And to uphold this, I found a talk from Roby Harris, who writes kids nonfiction, which is also educational, about sensitive topics like puberty, sex, and relationships. Institutions often get in the way of his writing and impede on his informational freedom. He cited that the use of the word toilet on Captain Kangaroo was banned in 1968 when he wrote a series of segments for them. My second argument is that profanity charges don't hold up because of the First Amendment. A Greencastle student in 2007 threatened her principal through MySpace, and she was never prosecuted because of the First Amendment. Delgado's claims against fighting words were disputed by another researcher, saying that he makes no attempt to show that as a matter of psychology, punishing name-calling is a means of changing deeply held attitudes. Regulating the use of words harmful in themselves appears to fly in the face of fundamental First Amendment values. Also, the First Amendment protects the emotive as well as the cognitive aspects of speech. If you can think it, you can say it, you can write it, you can sing it, you can put it on a t-shirt. Words are often chosen for their emotion, not just their underlying meaning. Also, this passed in Indiana after the student was charged that the court will no longer permit convictions for uttering offensive words to stand, whether the words be insulting, racist, or otherwise abusive. My third argument says that offensive and harmful are not synonymous. Being offensive by using profanity is different than using words to cause harm, like telling someone you're going to hurt them. We cannot monitor someone's speech constantly, trying to pick out the harmful motives. Also, novels that contain profanity, violence, or sexual situations are often banned from curriculums in public high schools across the United States. Novels like these not only help kids learn differences of lifestyle, but also ramifications for not being mindful of others and lessons about society and historical accuracy. Leaving these books out of some kids' view of the world could be detrimental to them in the long run. Other books that are often removed are To Kill a Mockingbird, The Lord of the Flies, The Color Purple, and Catcher in the Rye. And they're flagged for use of profanity as well as sexual themes. These novels are fiction, but have overarching messages of how to treat and not to treat people. We need to be introspective and learn about our society through literature like this, even with profanity intact. And the other point is that words that may be offensive are not always offensive in the correct context.
So I thought that with what you said, it was interesting how you mentioned like empathy and like guilt, and like I thought it was interesting because like it also is hard to figure out, like looking off of a kid or like kids looking at each other, it's hard to figure out what empathy and guilt looks like in kids unless like they've experienced that. So I guess if they have experienced seeing someone and like having someone tell them this is empathy, this is guilt, then they'd know. But like other than that, it'd be kind of hard to tell specifically what those emotions are. I also thought it was interesting how you said like children aren't worried really about themselves. They're more worried about like the happiness of others, so that's why they would like prevent from using the word. I thought that was interesting. Going off what you said, I thought it was intriguing how you mentioned like the books being banned, because like along with what I said, banning books kind of eliminates a way to like educate children in schools about the words and like about the offensive words, and like by doing that it kind of eliminates the way of like if we did educate people, it would, like going off what I said, it would take away from them like knowing the historical context behind it, so they would know if it was offensive or not. And what you said, it's hard to change things that are like biological. I thought that like you like growing up that way, it is hard to do that. Like you can't just like unlearn something. You can't just like have your parents do this and then grow up and like think that it's suddenly wrong, unless, I mean, you possibly can if like you grow to have different like outside resources and like knowings, but mainly you can't change that. And I thought it was also interesting about what you said about the like girl who didn't get in trouble for like saying something about her teacher. Like now it's like that has happened like at my schools and stuff, and they take like offense to it, and like one girl like actually had to go to jail, and like she got her mugshot taken, and like because she said she wanted to like kill a teacher, so they took that literally, and then they did take legal action on that. So it's interesting, like what case do you do it with, what case don't you do it with, because she was still a minor too. And I just think that the whole like book thing, again, that is like a really strong argument for it, because it's hard to ban things that prevent you from learning, like the potty thing and having to ban toilet.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with the way that you're feeling on that too, because banning words like that, I mean, there are other such words that radio and television has had to ban, and they're not allowed to say certain things, not necessarily swear words, but, you know, regular, basic technical terms for our anatomy. You're not allowed to say that on TV.
Yeah.
And I think that can be really harmful to kids in the long run, because if they grow up thinking that toilet is a naughty word and you should say potty instead, then you're going to have a bunch of 20-year-olds running around saying they need to go to the potty. Like,
yeah.
And that undermines the use of the words entirely. And I think I had said in this that it helps kids to learn the differences of lifestyle. My parents didn't swear, but I do. And there's a big generational difference. I do not swear around my mother, but it's not beneath me if I stub my toe to say shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's still gonna happen. It's still gonna come out of my mouth, whether I learned that from my parents or not.
Well, in going off of that, it really depends on the person. Because for me, my mom, both my parents, you know, swore every once in a while. My dad was never used offensive language, but you know, he swore more, you know, when he was angry or, you know, in pain or something. And I got that from him, not from my mom. My mom doesn't do that. But now, you know, I was around it with my dad so much. He was at home more, that now I'm an adult now, and now I sing it in front of them because it's learned. I learned it, you know. They made it a norm, so it was kind of became learned.
Yeah.
And then, kind of something else I was gonna say, just a little story. But you know, I told the class when I went to the Pride Parade, you know, I was punched in the face. So, going off of that, a lot of people, when I tell them that story, the people I was with there, they ask me, you know, oh my gosh, aren't you so offended? How could that guy hate the community so much? And, you know, at first I never looked at it from that perspective. I never had that outlook on it. But, if you flip the situation and he came up running, a bunch of offensive language, I would have looked at the situation, maybe a little bit differently. I would have felt more targeted. But what I would like to say about that is,
it's the difference between offensive and harmful.
in my situation, it would have been my responsibility, unfortunately, but I should be responsible for separating the fact that that person doesn't know me, so they don't know me well enough to call me mean names or hit me. They don't know me well enough to have control over my feelings. So when it comes to, offensive language that isn't meant to harm you, it's really about, separating what is and isn't. Every few seconds I'd look